For 130 years, this tablet sat in a museum drawer in Philadelphia. Nobody could read it. In 2025, somebody finally did. And what it describes is a door, under the water, into a world the Sumerians believed was real, with a gatekeeper, a rule, and a price for breaking it. 2/3 of the tablet is missing. The part that survived tells you how to get in. The part that's gone tells you how to get out. Here's what the records actually show. The Sumerians were the first people on Earth to write things down. Not receipts, cosmologies. Long, careful descriptions of a universe with layers. And one of those layers sat directly under the ground they walked on. They called it the Abzu, a freshwater ocean beneath the soil. Inhabited, mapped, ruled. For most of the last century, scholars treated all of it as poetry. Then, two things happened in two completely different fields, and the poetry started looking like something else. The tablet is catalogued as NI 12501, excavated in Nippur in the 1890s, shipped to the University of Pennsylvania, shelved, forgotten. Roughly the size of a paperback, cracked along one edge. About 4,400 years old. In 2024, Dr. Jana Matuszak at the University of Chicago finished a translation that had defeated every previous attempt. She published it in the journal Iraq in 2025. What the surviving lines describe is this. The storm god Ishkur has been taken into the Kur, the Sumerian underworld. The other gods meet to decide who will go down and bring him back. Nobody volunteers. Then, a fox steps forward. A fox. And the fox, the text says, knows the secret of crossing over. He knows the rule nobody else seems to know. He will accept the food of the underworld when it is offered. He will appear to eat it, but he will not actually swallow a single bite. Because if he does, he never comes back up. The tablet breaks off before we learn whether the fox makes it home. 4,400 years, and the cliffhanger is still hanging. That rule, don't eat the food of the other world, is the part that should not exist where it does. Because it doesn't appear once in human storytelling. It appears everywhere. Persephone in Greece. 6 pomegranate seeds, 6 months trapped underground. Celtic stories about food offered under the hill. Folk traditions across Eurasia warning travelers in nearly identical language against accepting hospitality on the wrong side of a threshold. Nigh 12,501 is, as far as anyone can currently establish, the oldest written version of that rule on the planet. Roughly 1,800 years older than Persephone. How a piece of folklore from a Sumerian city in 2400 BC ended up almost verbatim in cultures that had no contact with Mesopotamia for thousands of years afterward. Matuszak's paper doesn't answer that. It just lays the timeline down on the table. There's another detail the news coverage skipped. The fox isn't going up. He isn't going across. He's going down. Through a gate, past a gatekeeper, into a place the Sumerians described in other tablets with the kind of architectural precision usually reserved for buildings that actually exist. Because NI 12501 isn't an outlier. It's a fragment of a much larger system. The Sumerians wrote about 2 underworlds, and modern videos almost always confuse them. The Kur was the dry one. Dust, silence, 7 gates. A gatekeeper named Neti, ruled by the goddess Ereshkigal in a palace called Ganzir. The Abzu was the wet one, a vast freshwater ocean beneath the surface of the earth, ruled by Enki, one of the 3 highest gods in the entire pantheon. It had a household, a queen, a counselor, a doorman named Lamu. Springs, rivers, and wells were understood, literally, as water leaking up from it. And here's the part that gets strange. The Sumerians built their oldest known city, Eridu, around 5400 BC on the edge of a marsh at the head of the Persian Gulf. Inside Eridu, they built Enki's temple, and they called it Abzu, the house of the cosmic waters. Not symbolically. They built the structure at the actual physical line where dry land met standing water, as if they were marking a border. For most of the 20th century, scholars assumed the Abzu was mythology dressed up as geography. Look closer at what was published in 2010, and the picture flips. It wasn't geography dressed up as mythology either. It was a memory. A memory of a place that was, at one point, completely real. And the place was sitting roughly 30 miles offshore from Eridu's front door. In December 2010, an archaeologist named Jeffrey Rose, working out of the University of Birmingham, published a paper in Current Anthropology that almost nobody outside his field read carefully. Rose's argument, supported by sediment cores, sea level reconstruction, and decades of regional fieldwork, was this. The basin we now call the Persian Gulf, the body of water sitting directly in front of where Eridu was built, was, until roughly 8,000 years ago, not a body of water. It was dry land, an area roughly the size of Great Britain, watered by the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Karun, and a network of underground springs feeding up from below. A green oasis surrounded by desert, habitable for somewhere between 75,000 and 125,000 years. Then, around 6000 BC, the Indian Ocean rose. The basin filled. An entire landscape, rivers, settlements, whatever had been built there, went under roughly 200 feet, 60 meters of seawater. The flood took less than 1,000 years. In some stretches, less than 100. And this is the moment the archaeology stops making sense. Because at exactly that moment, in exactly that region, more than 60 advanced settlements appear, fully formed, along the new coastline. Stone houses, long-distance trade goods, pottery traditions with no clear local prototype, one of the oldest sea-going boats ever recovered, people with skills that should have taken centuries to develop, showing up on the shore overnight. Rose's reading is that they didn't develop on the shore. They retreated to the shore, from the basin. Their grandparents' country was now under 60 meters of seawater. The culture that emerged from those refugees generations later became the Ubaid, and the Ubaid became the Sumerians, who then built their oldest city facing the Gulf, with a temple at the water's edge dedicated to a god who lived in a freshwater ocean beneath the world. Here's the part the academic record still hasn't closed. In 1976, a writer named Zecharia Sitchin took fragments of this material and built an entire alternative history around it. Ancient astronauts, a hidden planet, gold mines beneath the Gulf. The books sold millions. The translations did not survive scrutiny. Dr. Michael Heiser went through the Sumerian sources line by line and found that the words Sitchin claimed to be reading weren't there. The British Museum's cuneiform specialists said the same. But the question Sitchin was reaching for is the question nobody has properly answered. Why did the Sumerians build their first city facing a flooded basin and write so carefully about a world below it? The oldest layers of Eridu sit below the modern water table. Most of the Persian Gulf has never been surveyed archaeologically. 2/3 of NI 12501 is still missing. Whatever was on the broken half is sitting in a Philadelphia archive nobody's reopened, or on the floor of the Gulf under 200 feet of water. Either way, somebody, somewhere, knows which one it is. And nobody's looking.